Hi, I'm Holly from Renegade Revolution, and today I will be interviewing John Patrick Lowrie, who has written a fantastic sci-fi novel, Dancing with Eternity. Hi, John.
Hi, Holly.
Now, would you like to just explain in a few words what your novel is about for those watching this who haven't actually read it yet, which you should, by the way.
Well, it's set 2,000 years in the future, and the basic idea behind it was, what would we do if all of our dreams came true? And so I developed a technology that would keep everyone alive, but everyone would have to get rebooted every 60 years. And basically, you would go into the hospital for 3 months and have your body repaired so that it was 20 years old again, so you get another adult life. And I posited a telepathic internet so that everyone could communicate with everyone else instantaneously. And in those ways, I thought, the things that upset us the most when we read about them in the paper is that this person was killed, that person was killed, these people died, or this person was assaulted or raped or anything like that. And with these two technologies, I thought we could eliminate all those things. That no one would die anymore, no one would get raped anymore because they'd all be telepathically connected, stuff like that. And then what would we do? The central story through the book involves some people who are on a quest, on a mission to save this one person's life who has encountered a particular problem. And basically the book takes you on an odyssey through this galactic civilization where you meet various people who have various opinions about what has gone on and their attitudes, and they're all in conflict with each other, and that propels the story forward. But it's really this idea that there is no death and there kind of is no more crime, and what will we do in this kind of perfect world?
One of the interesting things I found about it was it's quite rare to find a sci-fi novel that deals with feminism in such a way, and that was really quite heartening to read.
Well, I think so. I mean, and as I was trying to get the book published, I ran into things that were discouraging to me because I think one of the reasons why you don't see that is there are people in the publishing industry that don't like feminism spoken about in any way other than within feminism. And I think that one of the things we get to do in science fiction is to look at things that are familiar from someplace else, from outside. And so, yeah, you got to have some conversations about this struggle and what it was about and how it was shaped that were from a completely alien perspective, which I hope is illuminating.
It was a great read. It was really great. The other thing I was wondering is, what were your main sort of sci-fi influences, if they were sci-fi influences, and did your main influences for the book come from someplace else?
Well, I mean, certainly one of my great influences in my writing is Sam Clemens, Mark Twain, who wrote a little bit of science fiction, but mostly not. And a lot of other American writers who are influenced by Mark Twain, like Robert Heinlein, but also Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury. I think you can certainly see the influences of him, Samuel R. Delany. Those are the people that I grew up with. Harlan Ellison. These people that wrote stories that tried to turn your head inside out, which I feel is the thing that science fiction does that is the most fun. That it shows you something from such a weird alien perspective that you just say, I never thought of it that way before. So that's what I was trying to do.
It was very interesting actually, because when I read the book, I did not realise that you had such a history with acting and so on. And it's very interesting because quite often hard sci-fi that deals with really difficult, tough issues, is quite hard itself. It's unapproachable. And having the main character be an actor, it really sort of brought this different edge to it that made it more, I found, more approachable.
Well, I think, sometimes, because a lot of times science fiction is written by scientists, and they're a lot better at writing about science than they are about writing about people. Yeah. Science has always been my hobby, and I'm just fascinated by quantum mechanics and string theory and all this kind of stuff and astrophysics. And one of the things that I wanted to do that I thought would be fun is to set the book 2,000 years in the future and try to create a future science that didn't break any of our known laws, but that was as weird to us as quantum mechanics would be to Archimedes. Because no one in the classical Greek times, even Newton, never would have been able to predict quantum mechanics. I mean, holy moly! It's just so weird. And so I thought, well, there are things that we think we know about now, but maybe we don't know about. There are things we think maybe that we've debunked telepathy. Well, maybe we haven't. I know people that have seen the future. I know people that have had these profound mental experiences. You can't reproduce them in a laboratory. That doesn't mean that they didn't happen, or that we might not be at some point able to reproduce them in a laboratory. So I played around with that stuff.
I noticed there was sort of parallel to the way Frank Herbert dealt with his stuff in Dune. And obviously it's completely different technologies and completely different reasons behind it. But I mean, I've heard people talk about why Dune was so successful was because it did that in a very sort of psychological point of view, rather than saying, oh, science is going to be like this in a couple of thousand years.
Right. I mean, the great thing about Frank Herbert was that he was a journalist. And so he was steeped in psychology and politics. And so Dune really was all about politics.
That was a bit more heavy on the politics.
Right, which was great. You were reading about Watergate and stuff only on, in the galaxy in the future. And that was a great fun thing about Dune, was that he created this political universe with all these people trying to, get to the top and get their power. And that's the same kind of thing that I wanted to do in Dancing with Eternity, was create a galaxy-wide civilization that had various groups of people that wanted to do things that were completely opposite the things that other people wanted to do. So you really had conflict that you could get your teeth into, and that you really didn't know which side you'd be on.
Yeah.
Like when you got to Eden, when you got to Cersei.
Think things halfway
right,
through.
Oh, right, okay.
The interpersonal aspect really shone through.
Right. And so, but the best science fiction to me has always been about talking about how we are now, by looking at how we might be under different circumstances.
Really fantastic stuff. Do you have any advice for people who may be writing their own book or looking to get into the industry?
Well, the publishing industry is really changing. I was fortunate enough to get a publisher. It was a small publisher, but they edited the book, they printed the book, and it was great. Getting an agent can be very hard. I was trying to get an agent when I ended up getting a publisher. So, but I think that basically, writing is a very time-intensive and very energy-intensive thing to do. You can modify yourself to try to make money. You can try to write a book that would sell. But when you get to the end of that, you've spent a whole lot of your life doing something that isn't really you. And so I don't know how much money Dancing with Eternity will ever make, but I know that it was an artistic expression that was as true as I could make it, and it's my voice. And so my voice is either going to speak to people or it's not. But if I try to modify my voice and write teenage vampire romance novels or something like that, it's not going to be my voice anymore, so it's not really going to matter. And I think we can be led down that track in our industrial, capitalistic society, where it seems to be that all success is defined by how much money you make. But we constantly see examples of that not being true. We constantly see, the guy who spent his life fishing, the lady who ran a bed and breakfast, or just was, the local neighborhood knitter or quilter or whatever, who's had a wonderful life and a happy life. And I think that it's much more important to create the piece of art that you want to create, and then figure out how to market it. As Igor Stravinsky once said, the trick is to get commissioned to write the piece you wanted to write anyway. So, never give up.
Finally, I would just like to touch on, I've heard that you have an audiobook coming out.
Yes, Ellen and I just finished the audiobook of Dancing with Eternity. And she reads all the female parts, and I read the rest of the book because it's written in first person. We also, the producers are Imagination Theater, who also produce my Sherlock Holmes radio series. And so I'm also a composer, so I used two pieces that I had written as intros and outros to all the chapters, and then we laid in environmental sound, not really sound effects. Every once in a while a particular thing will happen that we'll have a sound effect for, but mostly when you're in the jungle at night, it sounds like you're in the jungle at night. When you're on the spaceship, it sounds like you're on the spaceship, and stuff like that. So it's a very cinematic experience for an audiobook, and that will be coming out this spring.
Excellent. So everyone watching this, look out for it. Are we going to hear any more from Mo and what's going?
I don't know if I will write a sequel about Mo. The problem with writing a sequel to a book that is set 2,000 years in the future, when you've actually written 2,000 years of history and 2,000 years of technological advances, how do you get everybody up to speed in the second book with all that history and technology? So that's something that I've been thinking about, and I don't know. I mean, science fiction to me has technological advances that are designed to speak to a certain subject that the author wants to address. And I imagine that's what I'll do, is I'll come up with another thematic bit.
Well, I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
It's been really great talking to you, and yeah, everyone at home, go and check out John Patrick Lowrie, Dancing with Eternity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Holly.
It's a revolution.